Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our new staff call. So if you're a fairly new with a Center for Independent Living or a statewide independent living council, this call is for you. My name is Paula, and I'm going to be hosting the call today. I'll start with a little bit of training for you, and then I'll go from there to provide you with some opportunity to talk. So I'll explain that again in a little bit. But what we're going to do is talk about one of the core services today. And we're going to do that as a group in a recording, which will be posted on our website. If you haven't yet discovered our website, it is a really cool website with more resources than you quite will know what to do with. And you'll have my email here in a little bit. If you want to contact me and say, I can't find X, because there's so much on there, it's okay, I'll send you the direct link. So just drop me a message and see about that, and that would be fine. We'd be glad to do that. So we do have a, like I said, a recorded call. Joey has put that in the chat for you. We'll be using the chat quite a bit. The interpreter is pinned, Dana, so I'm going to suggest that you change your view. So you should be able to go up or down wherever your menu is, and you should be able to change the view so that you again have him spotlighted, because he is pinned. So and maybe Joey can help you troubleshoot that a little bit more in the chat, but we would suggest that you do that. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about independent living skills training. So as I started to say, this is going to be posted. Joey gave you the link, and where it's posted, anybody can see it. So this first part is recorded and posted. So if you have anything you want to ask that you don't want someone else to see, you don't have to talk until I turn off the recording. Now, there are a couple of you who are also recording in your own assistive devices, an AI recording, maybe an Otter. There are a couple of you that I've given permission to do that because you asked. And we expect that you keep that private. We will be posting, like I said, just the part that we record, and we'll turn that recording off at the end of this first part. So just so you're aware that that's what's going on. All right, let's look at the next slide. I'm Paula McAwee, as I said. I'm a older, silver-haired, Scottish-complected woman wearing a black, actually it's a nickel t-shirt. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got disability justice on it. So you can kind of, forging justice, kind of see that. And that's what I'm wearing today. And I'm here to, facilitate a conversation. So I do hope that you all will take the time to drop some things in the chat. I'm going to ask you to a couple of times during this call. And the more you do that, the better. I think it's great if you turn your camera off. I think that it gives us a little more camaraderie. And you're all new and you're all a little shy, maybe, but that's okay because you're all in the same boat together. So I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that we're able to do that. Next slide. We're a part of a collaboration of partners that are called the ILNet, as in network. One of them is the Independent Living Research Utilization. That's who gets the grant. One of them is the Association of Programs for Rural Independent Living, and April, and that's one of our partners. Nickel is another, the National Council on Independent Living, and the University of Montana, which is actually where I work. Next slide, yeah. So we're going to talk today about what core services are, just as a review, and then the specific core service of independent living skills training. We're going to talk a little about how they're taught, what they are, And we're going to remind you that as a person with a disability, you are an especially effective teacher, and teaching is what you do with independent living skills. So independent living skills are taught in some way, and we'll talk about some of the different ways that they're taught as well. Okay. So what are the core services? Quick reminder, the core services are required by every center. So if your center isn't providing every one of these, they're not a real center. Centers must provide all of these services. It's in the law. Information and referral is one of those. We just talked about that on the program manager's call yesterday. And so if you want to talk a little bit more about information and referral, that might be useful for you to check on the same page that has those other resources. IL skills, we're going to talk about today. Peer counseling, we talked about last month in the same call. Individual and systems advocacy, we talked about before that. And then transition. Transition has a bunch of parts, kind of moving parts, actually. But the transition includes transition out of nursing homes or other institutions. They aren't all nursing homes. But it also includes the transition of youth to post-secondary life. So they're out of high school and they're transitioning. And then it also includes transition. It includes preventing people from going into nursing homes, which is not exactly transition, but it counts, right? So keep that in mind as well. So those are the core services, all of them required. We're going to talk about the one, which is your IL skills training. Okay. So what is IL skills training or independent living skills training is the first question here, right? Independent living skills are the skills you need to live independently. Seems logical, right? So those skills that you need to live independently are all kinds of different things. They're different things for different people. So we know that people with disabilities need the same opportunities as everyone else to choose where to live, choose what to do for a living, their job, lead the lives that they want, make decisions about their lives. We talked about those transition decisions, but there are lots of other decisions, aren't there, about where you live and what you do in life. And sometimes there are things they need to learn in order to accomplish those things. That's where you come in. So an individual comes to you and they set a goal or more than one goal. They identify then what they need to accomplish in order to meet that goal or goals. And those are often independent living skills of some sort. So those are taught by the center based on what the person wants and what you are able to provide to them or teach to them. And don't we all still want to learn things in life? I do, and I'm in my 70s. So you know, kind of right off, life is a constant set of learning things. It should be anyway, I think. And we have different things that people come to us for when they're moving out of their parents' home, and then a different set of things when they're wanting to save up money or take a trip or do some other thing. Whatever it is that makes their life exciting and what they want to accomplish might include some skills they need to learn. And so that's what independent living skills training is teaching those skills. Next slide. So let's compile a list in the chat. If you would, type out the independent living skills that you're aware of. What are you teaching? So what are they? Let's pop them in there. Here are a few that I put together or with a friend put together. Pre-employment skills, right? Sometimes people are wanting a job and, you know, how to prepare, how to apply, how to interview, how, you know, all of those things can be part of those skills. Certainly, that's also true of anything that's in life that you expect. So I saw one this morning from the center in my hometown, and the center in my hometown had how to survive a wildfire on their list of independent living skills. Well, it's wildfire season in California, and how to have a plan and know where to go if a wildfire threatens where you live is an important skill, right? So also parenting with a disability. Now, you don't always think about people being parents, but many of the people that we serve and the people that we hire and the people that we know in the disability community are parents. And there are some specific skills you need to navigate the world if the world doesn't think you ought to be a parent. And that's out there, right? So what are those skills and how do we make that work is a really, really good question. Let's also think about just advocacy is so important to make everything work, right? So advocacy, whether that's in the systems, the grassroots, for your personal stuff, all of that becomes really important. So let's make sure that we make advocacy happen. Eric said community navigation and safety. Certainly. How do you get around your community? Sometimes that's public transportation. Sometimes it isn't, depending on where you live. So what is your transportation method? Do you need to get a driver's license? Ride a bicycle? I have a friend who uses a manual wheelchair to get around. She also drives, but when she's navigating with her wheelchair, she has a wheelchair that she uses, but she also has a device you can put on it to make it less work to push. It helps boost her energy when she's getting around the community. It was an important thing for her to learn about. And she learned about it from another person who had one. And she said, wow, that's a great idea. I need one of those. So navigating in the community, certainly. Safety, certainly. Civic engagement, Jasmine says. Absolutely. And that can be in so many different layers, right? What to do when a personal assistant calls in sick. I think managing personal assistants is its own set of things, not just this one. How do you hire people? How do you assist them with doing what you want them to do instead of what they think should be done? So making sure that you're in charge of your personal assistants becomes one of those. I had relationship skills shows up here, financial literacy, cooking, shopping, budgeting, what to do when you're bullied. Oh boy, I saw a situation the other day at a public meeting that was about disability issues, and there was some bullying going on, and I wished I was in the meeting. I was on a Zoom call, and so I didn't have a chance to get right up there and say, hey, but somebody needed to, because bullying happens more often than it should. Social skills and learning what's appropriate. I got to tell you a story. So I had this friend, and he had never worked before, and he'd been coached, and he had a new job at a car dealership was where his job was. He was helping to detail the cars, and went to the break room the first morning for break, and was afraid he'd make a mess. So somehow in the coaching for getting him ready for this job, that was what was emphasized more than the social skills. And so he stood over in the corner by the wastebasket to eat his break. Now they had coached, socially he had not had a lot of experience. And so they had coached one of his fellow employees. You know, you might help him out. Could you mentor him a little bit? This is his first job. He was young too, you know. And he was mentored to come back over to sit with everybody else for the break and begin the social skills, but he didn't know what was appropriate because he'd never had that experience before, right? So how to winterize, how to be energy efficient, how to develop menus, how to access community resources, how to plan and prepare for moving into your own home, cooking, travel training, mock interviews, budgeting, relationship building, household management, conflict management, self-advocacy. Wow, right? Interview skills, conflict resolution, self-advocacy. It goes on and on and on. How to avoid discrimination, how to push back when you need to. We also had budgeting, opening a bank account, managing your household, looking for a place to live. Housing is such a challenge, especially if you need accessible housing or affordable housing. Wow, there are lots of skills. It takes a lot of skill to live independently, and we can teach any of those as independent living skills training. They don't just have to be something that's in your manual or your policy. There may be needs that are much greater than those limited skills. Let's look at the next slide. So where and how do you teach these things? Well, one of my favorite answers to questions, if as you get to know me a little better, you'll figure this out, is, well, it depends. What makes sense? So while we're discussing this, let's drop in that chat again. What are some of your methods for teaching independent living skills? But here are some examples. Sometimes if a group can learn that together, that particular skill, some of that emergency management, some of those hiring direct support workers, some of those could be done in a classroom, right? So you might do them in a classroom setting where a group can learn them together, or a portion of it might be done in the classroom and then you move to another place. Jasmine says small trips, like going to the Capitol to register for the RTS. Sometimes you can go in a group together to other community-based services to accomplish something or learn something or tackle something. Is it something specific to the place, the new living setting that the person's going to live in, like their stove or another appliance? I don't know about you, but I had to learn to run my washing machine all over again when I had to replace it because it was all different. You're not going to teach somebody how to use the stove in someone else's place. You're going to teach it, as Teresa says, in the environment that skill's used in, right? Role play, excellent one, Maya, because if you're going to have interviews, introductions, lots of things can be role played. You're going to go in, I suggest in a minute that they might go to the bank to do to open their checking account. They might have the bank teach them instead of you. But it's okay to role play that ahead of time because they may not be really ready to tackle that. And they may say, I guess I'll put that off because she's not going to do it for me. And I don't want to do it by myself. But if you role play it, often that really helps. So that's also helpful. Is there a curriculum that makes sense? There are curriculums for some things. How to cook, right? Financial management. There are financial management curriculums. There are other things like that if you want to, a curriculum might make sense. You could have a classroom setting. You could do the curriculum. It really works well. Maybe to a point. You got to individualize at some point, but there may be curriculums that will work in some such situations. Financial literacy, emergency preparedness. There are some things out there in terms of manuals or other documents that help guide you through a class setting of some sort. What about sharing your own experience? Does that make sense? Then you can teach with an element of peer support from the very get-go. And you can do that in a way that really makes a difference for that individual. But usually you want it to be in person doing the thing, whatever that thing is, or assisting them in planning to do it on their own, which is the role play kind of thing. Next slide. So the other question is, are you the only teacher of those skills? That's the example I gave with the bank. A bank can teach someone how to open a bank account without you. You might help the consumer compile their questions to ask, or the answers to some of the questions, like so they have their social security number or whatever else they need in order to open an account. Maybe some of it can be done online, there's also that. But are you the only person to teach that skill is a decent question. Are there community volunteers that can help with some things? And this especially is true with hobbies, because there are groups around every hobby in the world. So if they like miniature trains, I guarantee you there's a miniature train group somewhere that might be willing to say, I'll introduce you to the team. You can come be a part of our group. You can demonstrate at our events, whatever that's related to that. Genealogy, sometimes home ec type people. In fact, the home extension offices sometimes will teach some of the home skills to people. So they have, so every state has what's called a land grant college, and has based out of that usually what are called county extension offices, and home extension offices are part of that. And those home extension offices often have teaching resources around independent living skills. So it's not just you. What about emergency preparedness meetings? I mean, that's the community, right? The community is doing emergency preparedness. Somebody wants to get involved in a church. Can the church assign a mentor or friend to introduce them to people, show them where the classroom is, tell them what time it starts, see what it takes for them to get there, all that kind of stuff. Remember, increasing community involvement is also one of our tasks. It's actually in the purpose of independent living centers. And so that can be done with those skills too. You still get to count them when you're counting services arranged or provided. Might be information and referral depending on how much you're involved, but you're not the only teacher of these skills. So you need to keep that in mind. Next slide. All right, that's my quick summary. Took us 22 minutes. That leaves us the rest of the time to ask questions, see what you're curious about, clarify anything that needs more explanation. So we're going to turn off the recording.